Welcome, ladies, to the Real Estate Investor Show, providing inspiration, strategies, and insight to empower women investors to live balanced and financially free lives. Now, here are your co-hosts, Liz and Andressa.
We are super excited to sit down with Michelle Bosch on this week's inspiring episode. Michelle has been a full-time investor since 2002, is co-founder and managing director of Orbit Investments. She and her partner Jack have bought and sold over 4,000 pieces of real estate and built the third largest land investment and auction company in the United States, bringing that company successfully into the 8-figure revenues in a matter of 18 months. On today's episode, we cover so much with Michelle, from why flipping land is a lot easier and simpler than flipping homes, to the plans you must have in place for financial freedom, to why you should stop setting goals and instead start determining your identity. Welcome back, ladies. This is Liz.
And this is Andressa.
And you are back on the Real Estate Investor Show, and excited to have you back on for a great episode we have. Hi, Michelle. Welcome to the show.
Hi, ladies. Excited to be here.
Yeah, we're going to jump into Michelle's background and all the good stuff we'll be talking about in a moment. But as Andressa and I like to do as we begin the show, just kind of share a little bit what's up for us.
What's going on?
Oh, Andressa, we are revamping our company website, the DeRosa Group.
Yeah, I know about that.
And I was like, how long is this really going to be? And I maybe shared with our Facebook community. My husband wrote a book for Bigger Pockets. So we're like, we got to get this new website up and running, before the book launches.
Yes.
Well, I, took a lot longer than I expected. But why I wanted to mention it on our call today was the exercise of actually revamping your website was so helpful for us. Rewriting our bios, rewriting what our company stood for, our values. It was actually like this exercise in and of itself. It wasn't just about the website, but like, what is the brand that we're trying to emulate out there? And it was just really helpful all around as a actual business exercise, which I didn't anticipate. I was like, okay, we just got to get our website redone and put the book on there and bingo bango. But it was so helpful to do that. And I would encourage the ladies listening to this, if you haven't looked at your website in a while, or what's your online presence, just revamping it or refreshing it is so helpful because we're always evolving as people, as business.
Yeah.
So it was just a helpful reminder. And we actually felt it was very therapeutic to do. And I just wasn't expecting that as a result. So
I saw it. I knew before and after. And I think you guys did an excellent job because it really reflects who you guys are right now as a family and as business owners. It didn't reflect who you guys were 10, 12 years ago. You guys changed it. The family grew. You have Zachy and Sammy now. It's just different. And now I think it matches perfectly. Your goals, your values are very clear. So it's easier for people to identify with you and want to do business with you because they can see everything. So crystal clear what do you guys stand for.
Well, that's the thing I wanted to mention to the listeners too, or our ladies listening. I mean, if your brand doesn't represent who you are, it's hard for people to connect with you. And so I that was the other thing our web designer said is, I said, I don't know if I should put a picture of my family and my kids. Does that seem a little, much? Or even the nonprofits I support, is that a little much? And she goes, no, people want to get to know you, just like they want to get to know anyone doing business with you. So that was just interesting. And I think about the first website was like a business card, and now it's like this interactive place that people want to get to know you. They don't want to just know you do business. So, well, thank you. You have to say that now.
No, I don't. And I'm just joking. You know what? I'm very straightforward. If I saw something, I would call you and say, "Hey, what the hell is that picture?"
you would tell me that. That's what I love about you. What I love about you, Andressa.
That.
Without further ado, Michelle, thank you so much for being on our show today. Welcome again.
Thank you for having me, ladies. I'm excited. Thank you for the opportunity. And definitely revamping a website can be an MBA. You're learning about, you're thinking about your branding, your positioning, like you said, core values. So HR, how will this appear if you're recruiting people for your team? It's not just their clients. It really is a little mini crash course in business if you think about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it's and your website and your business is so fascinating. We just love to jump into your story because everyone has a story. And you and your husband run a very successful real estate investment company, do a lot of courses. So Michelle is an expert in a lot of areas. So please, without further ado, share a little bit about your journey to becoming an investor, because that's something that is unique to all of us. So.
It is unique to all of us. So both Jack and myself came here to the U.S. Well, I got here in 1995. He got here in 1997. We both originally came to study. He's originally from Germany. I'm from Honduras. So both from complete different parts of the world. And we met, fell in love, and decided to stay here in the U.S. And we both went ahead and, got jobs, and we're on H-1, working visas, and through our companies trying to get, our green cards and so on and so forth, because, marrying each other really didn't help our immigration status in terms of like, American story, but in any case, so that's kind of like, where we're from. And then we started working at that, at our respective jobs, and we were 100% travel. Absolutely, I think, hating, what we were doing a couple of years into it. And so we decided, okay, there's got to be something else. We can't continue doing this for much longer. We would barely see each other. And we would definitely, we saw a reduction in our ability to stay in contact with our respective families back home. With the beginning of a job, you have 2 weeks of vacation, and that's pretty much it. So either 1 year we would go to Germany, or 1 year we would go to Honduras, and that was it. And so we thought, no, that's no bueno. We need to see the rest of the world as well. And it just came from a complete, I want to say, a complete dissatisfaction in terms of how our life was unfolding back then, that we thought, okay, we need to do something different. We need to do something else. And we had no idea about real estate. So when we first got into it, for us, thinking about houses or homes or apartment buildings right now was definitely not in the horizon, only because even construction wise, how you build is completely different in Germany and in Honduras than how you build here in the US. And so we kind of stumbled into something called tax liens and tax deeds. And we figured out that very quickly that was incredibly competitive. But what we also found out by going to those auctions was that, there's people that are, letting these properties go, and they've made those decisions way in ahead, in advance. And so what we were like, okay, what if instead of trying to get, these properties, whether it be houses or land, and the majority of what we saw out there was land, at the auctions. What if we contacted these people earlier, in that process? And so we started doing direct mail, and we continue to do. So to this day, direct mail to vacant landowners of a certain price range, anywhere between $5,000 and $100,000. And those have become our staple meat and butter, deals with, 10, 15, 20 grand spreads, which considering what, in the house world you get is not bad at all. We have very too little, almost no competition in the land area. Everyone's chasing houses. We send out a mailing for either 300 or 500 letters, and we get a deal. If you send 1,000 letters, you're going to get, in terms of callback ratios, you're going to get anywhere between 5 and 20%, conversion on that 1,000 mailing, and probably 2 to 3 deals from there. So compared to the housing world, where you have to do, anywhere between 6 and 10,000 postcards to get one deal and have a spread of maybe 5 to 10 grand, not bad at all.
And where were the location that you guys started?
We started actually here in Arizona. So when we met in Chicago, actually, in Illinois. That's where we were, Jack was getting his MBA there. Then he found a job. Then I got accepted for my MBA here in Phoenix. And then after that, we're both working. And so for us, the more natural, transition was to start looking at land here in the state of Arizona. And then from there, really expanding nationwide, slowly into the Southwest area, and then pretty much everywhere in the U.S. at this point.
You raised such a good point, Michelle, because I'm thinking about, we did an exercise where we were sending out mailers. We're not wholesalers, so I'm not an expert by any means in direct mail, but we partnered with a wholesaler and we did this whole campaign for 6 months, probably about a year ago. And it was like, the results were like dismal. I mean, like literally dismal. We didn't end up buying any property from the project. I mean, we could have continued, but we just felt like we were just literally taking money and just putting it down the toilet. I mean, it was like, I just felt very frustrated about it. And I just, when you said that about competition, you're raising such an interesting point. I mean, fix and flippers are just, I mean, you meet anybody in the grocery store and everyone's flipping houses, right? I mean, anybody, right? Anybody and everybody. Yeah. So, in terms of land investing, tell us a little bit about that process. Cause I'm someone who knows very little about that. And I'm sure that a lot of investors know very little of that, even though those like myself and Andressa who actually are in this business and active in the business. So walk us through a little bit about what that looks like and okay. What do you just from as a pure beginner, I know very little.
Okay. So basically we go ahead and identify an area that we want to work in. And once we have identified, we get a list either from the county or from any of, your list brokers of people that own vacant land in that area. We kind of like sort our list based on price value. Ideally, you want to probably touch people that similar to the houses that are out of state owners, but it really doesn't matter. They can be in the same state, because what we're really looking at is, for the most part, it'll be either recreational properties in the outskirts of town, where the city is growing towards, or it'll be infill lots. Yeah. So, in the city. So you basically go ahead and send out a mailing, and people will be calling you back, and depending on the area and on the price range, anywhere between that 5 and 20% callback ratio that I told you earlier. Mm-hmm. You are going to ask them a few questions about their property in terms of size, and so on and so forth. And you are going to let them know that you're going to do a little bit more research, and you're going to get back to them, with an offer if you're interested in the property. So at that point, you do very minimal research, because you're not, you don't know if they're going to accept your offer or not. So it's really preliminary stuff that either will come with your list or that can be easily accessible in a county website, as far as, figuring out the subdivision, the sizes, topo, aerial views, and so on and so forth. And then you, and getting an idea on, values in the area. And you're going to make your offer. And usually that offer for us looks at anywhere between 10 to 25 cents on the dollar. And so we buy extremely, extremely cheap. And you are going to send your offers out, and you're going to get contracts accepted, and either you're going to self-close or you're going to send it to a title company. We, for the most part, just, we send stuff to title companies. And we recommend that even our students, just go ahead and go and, deal with a title company to do your closing, and so on and so forth. Some deals, there might be, the spread might be so low that you're like, okay, really, I can insure this on my own, so let me just self-close. But you would have to be very good at doing research at the grantor-grantee index, at a recorder's, county website, and so on and so forth. And you would need to know how that process works and what you're looking for. So for a beginner, I would say just, you have an accepted contract, send it to title. And as far as the closing goes, because it's so cheap, we are either looking at basically buying it outright, mm-hmm. or doing a double close, or putting an option on the property, finding your buyer, and then exercising your option, and then closing on the deal.
I'm curious, Michelle, just 1 second. Before you proceed, I just want to clarify the list. Do you get that list from your county, or do you purchase it from, List Source, Melissa?
Yeah, exactly. You could do List Source, Agent Pro.
Okay.
and or the counties. The county
Okay.
assessors. We usually just go for the counties because for us it's like the more direct route. They even have a use code. Usually the county lists have use codes, and they tell you what type of property that is, so you can immediately filter by vacant land. They give you values, and either county assessors offices will have that, or their information technology department will have that, and they can provide lists. You have to pay for them, but anywhere between $200-$300. I mean, for a list, it's the most that I've ever had to pay. And I've made that money many times over, so it's worth it.
Great. When you step back to around like the why behind land investment, like I think about, there's so many things that are like hot right now, right? Multifamily apartment buildings and,
Which we do too.
Okay. So you've transitioned, right? So you've transitioned, but you started as land, buying vacant.
And the reason why we did land is that because we didn't have to worry about termites. We didn't have to worry about toilets. We didn't have to worry about tenants. There was nothing to worry about. And because we had very limited knowledge as far as like, if we had to rehab a home, I mean, that would have been like an unsurmountable, accomplishment for us. That couldn't even enter like our headspace, on how we would go about doing that. So for us, it was like, okay, this is, we're going to find dirt, and we're going to find it for dirt cheap, and we're going to flip it. So, and that's originally how we started. We started it, flipping it for what we call in our house, one-time cash.
Mm-hmm.
And then we decided, okay, we can do this either, by getting one-time cash and exchanging, hours for dollars. And it's a very active kind of business that if I stop the mailings, that's, that reduces deal flow, and deal flow comes to an end. And if there's no deal flow, then I'm not making offers, and therefore I'm not making money. So then we started transitioning into offering seller financing. And basically we became the bank, and, we would just have, 5, 10, 15, 20-year notes. We are collecting on notes to this day, from way back in the day, where they're about to pay off. And we call that temporary cash. For us, it was like, okay, this is a big transition from being an active, having an active business to really having some residual, but that is temporary because the note at some point, will come to an end. They'll pay it off. And from there on, we kind of like transition we evolved as investors into what we call forever cash. My husband even wrote a book called Forever Cash. And so forever cash for us now, it's more the long-term buy and hold. Back in 2009, we went shopping. I mean, the U.S. was for sale, and we were sitting on a ton of liquidity from, monthly notes that were coming in. And so then we started buying and holding, single family homes in 3 markets. And then from there, okay, how can we 10x that? And we can 10x that, by buying 100, 200 doors at a time versus just one single family at a time, and so on and so. So kind of that's been our evolution, is kind of following that philosophy of what we call our end goal really as forever cash. But there's a place and time for one-time cash. For the flipping of the land, if you're just starting and you need seed money and you need to, at some point, replace your JOB, you need one-time cash. So,
So Michelle, I love that concept because, it's funny because when my husband and I talk, and even about the different types of money you can make, I love the terms you're using, like the one-time cash, the forever cash. So, I'm a woman listening to this podcast. I'm listening to this interview. How does an investor, figure out how much activity they need in those buckets? Because it's really comes down to time and energy and money, and where do we spend our time versus just following the shiny object, right? The shiny object syndrome happens a lot here in real estate investing. Mm-hmm. And I've had my share of that. So for the ladies listening to this, what would you suggest? Is there an exercise? Is there questions they can ask themselves to kind of figure out, to drill down to, how do they focus, right, on those buckets?
Yeah, and I can tell you exactly what we have done, and what we continue to do. So when we decided, okay, really the end goal is forever cash, what we first need to do is come up with, different milestones or landmarks that we need to accomplish. And so what we have, and we continue to use it to this day, and we actually teach our students, we call it, you develop your security plan, your comfort plan, and your luxury plan. And so the security plan for us, you know, back then we were doing already quite a bit of flips, and we were like, okay, with these flips, what is the minimum in terms of living expenses that I need to live on, you know, if both Jack and I did not have a job, that, you know, that we need to cover and that we need to meet. And so that was for us our security plan, and that did not include vacations, and that did not include, you know, spas or anything extravagant. It's the bare minimum of what you need in terms of your living expenses.
It did not include Starbucks coffee?
It did not.
Oh.
And we don't watch TV, so it didn't include cable either.
There we go. Right. So glad I'm hearing that.
So basically the bare minimum, and what do we need basically in order, if you had a job, to replace that income at the bare bones. And at some point we're like, okay, we are right now at a level of flipping of land that we're way over that, you know, that comfort or that security. So let's go ahead and start selling land, doing seller financing, so that we can meet that level of security, that security plan, with notes, with monthly payments, with mailbox money. Yeah. And so that was the first step. And then comes your, okay, and once you've accomplished that, and, you know, you're continuing to have access through either your one-time cash or your temporary cash, you're like, you can move on to the comfort plan. Okay, what does a comfort plan involve? How does it look like? Well, it involves me getting, you know, my nails done once a month versus no nails done, you know, once a month. Me doing my own nail polish versus, you know, going to someone to get it done. I mean, ladies, we need to take care of that. You know, getting my roots done, you know, every 8 weeks versus once a year. And so, you know, massage, a spa day, a relatively inexpensive vacation, you know, to a place that was not Honduras or Germany, because we knew that if we went to both those places, it would be a very, you know, very low budget, you know, in terms of we didn't have to spend anything in hotel because, you know, we would stay with family and so on. So the comfort involved a little bit more. It was us spending in a nicer hotel, you know, and so on and so forth for 2 weeks someplace in the world. And that's kind of like how we set our, you know, our comfort plan. And in that plan, we would still continue, you know, driving what we used to drive, which was, you know, my Geo Prism and Jack's Toyota Corolla. And at some point, you know, we decided to exchange the Corolla for a 4Runner so we could actually go in the beginning, go and take a look at the land. We don't do that anymore. I mean, the moment we started doing land auctions, which was back in 2003, 4, we used to do big land auctions, 200 properties, you know, every quarter. So 4 of those auctions a year. So for a total of about 800 properties a year that we would be basically either flipping for cash or doing the seller financing for them. And if I can go back a little bit in time to your earlier question, that's what allowed us the liquidity to then, at some point in 2009, when the market crashed, you know, be sitting in a ton of cash to go buy single family homes.
Well, when I look back at you guys, I also came with the goal of finishing up my master's degree and going back. So things changed. But it seems to me that you guys had a very clear goal where you guys were going. You probably didn't know how to, but you guys had bigger goals to where that reflects where you guys are right now, and that revolved as you grow your company.
Yeah, absolutely. We were driven. I come from a third world country, not a poor family, but middle class, and middle class in Honduras is still not a lot. You know, I had to do student assistantship in order to, you know, help myself cover tuition here at the university, be done in 3 years. So do extra classes so that I wouldn't, you know,
not
have the
right?
year of classes, you know, because that was a year of expenses where I wasn't getting any income. The same for Jack. I mean, he was raised on a single, you know, on a single income. His father is a teacher back in Germany. He has an older brother. He remembers at times, when he was with friends, from his school in study groups, and he couldn't, if they went to a bar to study, listen to this, it's Germany and it's beer, right? So he could have, he could have a beer, but he didn't have any money to order something to eat. And he could have a beer and he had to, sip on that beer for 3 hours or 4 hours, however long they studied. I know beer and studying doesn't go, but believe me, this man can make it happen. And so he remembers, not having a lot. And so absolutely, those are one of the things that, that drove us back then. You can either be driven by pleasure or by pain. And I think in the beginning for us, we were able to very successfully channel the pain aspect and use that as, rocket fuel to get us going, and being of the opinion of like, okay, whatever it takes, and kind of like that mindset. And so for, I would say 6 to 7 years, the first 6 to 7 years, we used to, we worked 80 to 100 hours a week. There was no balance, but we also did not have children, And so it was a time to really just give it our all, and it paid off.
So the luxury plan. So back on the three. I want to go back to that. So
yes,
tell us. So I can imagine what the luxury plan looks like, but tell us a little bit about what that looked like for you.
Yeah. And so then now the luxury plan looks like, okay, you have somebody that helps you with, with cleaning your house, somebody that helps you with washing, coming and doing laundry for you, somebody that helps me with Sophia on certain days of the week and picks her up from school and helps her with homework. It means us traveling, 3 to 4 months of the year. It means 5-star resorts. It'll depend for it'll be different for everyone. It'll be now, I just got myself in December a nice Porsche Cayenne. Jack got himself a Mercedes. And so it'll be different for different people. For some people it might be, flying private. This is, for me, I don't need that. So it's not something that will be in my luxury plan for myself. My trips, my long haul trips are either to Europe or Asia, and those I want to, fly first class. So I don't need to have a private plane for those, but I definitely want to sleep horizontal.
Oh, there you go.
For those 7-8 hours.
So for the women listening to this, it's, you think about these three pieces, right? You get the security plan, the comfort plan, the luxury plan. And then there's different probably real estate activity that's going to get you, right, to that kind of like into that movement of where you see yourself. When you were in just working your buns off, like you were just saying, in those first number of years, and you didn't have the Mercedes, you didn't have the luxuries that you have now, right? What propelled you? What exercises, or did you have a vision board? Like when you looked around and said, I don't have those things now, but I see those things coming, right? So I'm curious, was there anything in particular that you and your husband did to visualize those things when you didn't have them and they weren't around you at the time? Because so many times people get stopped, right? I don't have it. I'm here in my life, wherever here is. I want to get there, but it's so hard from here to there to see yourself going in that direction because they're not there, right? They don't have it. So I'm curious. I mean, there's a secret out there. We all know all those things. What you think about comes about. But for you, what did you guys do? Because you clearly did something to move yourselves in that direction.
So the first one to leave, to start the land business, actually actively 100% was me, because we were actually getting our green card through Jack's company, which is now Oracle. They used to be Sivo, it's now Oracle. And so we couldn't afford, for him to not have that job because our immigration status depended on that. So I was able to do, I think maybe 20 flips a year, the first year on my own. And then the moment that Jack left the company, we were able to do 90 deals. And it wasn't just him, but we were already at a point where we could afford not to have him have his job and also have two people assisting us. And so when he came on board, we were able to do, I think, 90 deals the following year 150. And at some point we're like, okay, we're working our asses off and it's still not where we're looking to go. And I think the looking to go, which is I think the crux of your question, is a matter of identity. Our identity was to have a 7-figure business. So that from the get-go was there. This is where we're going, and so in order to do that, we're like, okay, we cannot continue doing it how we're doing it right now. I can continue to sell, every week X number of properties, but how can we flush like 1,000 properties, 2,000 properties? And that's where the land auctions come into play. And at some point, and at that point, you realize and you recognize, okay, I cannot continue being a rugged individualist and controlling freak, which I was.
We come to that.
We have no idea what you're talking about.
And I need help, and I need a team, to help me do that. And so that's, I think it's a matter of identity. If you see yourself as, $100,000 type of person, or $200,000 type of person, that's kind of like where you're going to float in terms of your income. But if you, from the get-go, think about, 7 figures, I think for us, it was just, we had so much passion. It was never a question of whether this would be possible. It was just a matter of time and how. There was, I guess, some intensity involved in there as well. We knew that we were both here, foreigners, that we could do this, that we could really be the end of the story of a cycle of poverty consciousness, and and be the beginning or the birth of something really big. Yeah. So you can consider like, okay, we were the end of that story and we're the beginning of a new one.
Oh, I'm getting the chills here.
I know, I am too.
It is just so beautiful to see it. And more than building and buying, selling land, you guys are really changing a cycle and really leaving a huge legacy. Yes. And I think that's what it really matters at the end of the day, the legacy that you're living. I was thinking another day, podcasts didn't exist. Internet didn't exist, right? So if I were to research who my grandfather did, my grandmother did, I don't know. But our kids will be able to hear this story that you're talking right now. Your grandkids will, my grandkids will. And I always think of that what we are doing right now, the end of the day, that's the legacy that we want to show them, that it is possible. There's no excuse mentality. We'll get you there. So thank you for sharing that very raw moment.
I'm sorry there, I got emotional, but it's like, oh my God. I hadn't revisited that in a while. It's been a while.
Yeah. No, and I love what you're saying, Michelle, because I think so many times, people look at others and say, wow, you have so much, you must have gotten that, with a silver spoon.
You're lucky.
Or did you, or they think you started last week. I mean, there's so many interesting perceptions out there. And really to make that transition, so many people say, what are your goals? What are your goals? What are your goals? That's not the question actually at all. That's the wrong question. The question that you guys asked yourselves was, who are we? What is our identity? And that propelled you into the next phase. It actually wasn't, I'm sure you had goals along with it, but we asked the wrong questions. And if you're asking the wrong questions, you get the wrong results, or the results that you don't want. And you're right. You could be flipping 10 properties, 15 properties, 20 properties, whatever your goal is, and still at that level, if that's all you see yourself. Like if you see yourself as $100,000, it doesn't matter what you do, it'll always happen. If you'll go back to $100,000. I love that idea of what is your identity, because that is a different question. Question.
That goes for the balance in your bank account too. That works exactly the same way. Like, are you like a $10,000 kind of gal, in your bank account? or are you $1 million kind of gal in your bank account, or, so you can use that for pretty much anything if you think about it.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the idea of really people going within to get clear on that, because if they want the luxury, their own luxury, whatever luxury looks like, for them, having their kids be debt free and going to college, whatever it looks like for them, they have to ask that question.
If you think about it, the biggest luxury is a feeling, because we're all going after a feeling.
Right.
And when we started this, it was a feeling of peace of mind. And for us, in order to have peace of mind, we figured, okay, we're gonna go at it through the financial aspect, where really right now 90% of our time is being consumed in financial decisions. Let me not have to think about, oh my God, my shower should only be 3 minutes because it's costing me money to take an hour shower, or a nice, sumptuous bath or whatever. I'm like, let me not have that part of my mindset anymore, and so like I said, it's feelings that you're after. It's peace of mind, is for me, it's centeredness, feeling inspired daily. And so those are the things that you're we were looking at even back then, that we wanted for ourselves, that we wanted, at some point when we'd had children, that we wanted for our children. And eventually, what came out of that is that once you reach those things and you're already living those, in those feelings, you're like, okay, it's time to start looking outside of myself. And now how can I give those same feelings that I was looking for? It might not be your exact same ones, peace of mind, but how can I give that to others? And how can we be of service to others? And that's kind of how the educational business started, as a result of, it might sound selfish, but taking care of us first. And I find that actually truly meaningful, because if you take care of yourself, you have much more bandwidth to be able to extend that to your team, to your clients, to your family, to others. Not just on the financial side, Liz and Andressa, but also generally speaking for us ladies. That's something to always keep in mind, because we keep we tend to put ourselves last, and that's also, I think, something mindset and financial related, in that we feel bankrupt on self-love and so on and so forth.
Oh, big time. That can be like entire episode.
Yeah, you need to be teaching courses about these things, Michelle. We'll come to your first course, me and Andressa. I'm serious. Like,
I'll go there first.
Land flipping is awesome, but this is the more important stuff. So if you're not teaching on this stuff already, we'll definitely be your first. We'll come and support.
What's it? Self-bankrupt?
Yeah, I love your
like
I love it.
You're bankrupt. If I give you, because I use financial terms all the time, so I'm like, okay, it's like being bankrupt on self-love. If you don't take the time to, take care of yourself, so that you can really have the bandwidth, emotionally, physically, spiritually, to take care of others. So the progression, kind of starts, for every, I think, entrepreneur is, you're looking first for freedom of money at some point, then you're looking for freedom of time, through a team, you kind of like buy back your time. Then you're looking at, freedom of relationships, once you have those first two, you start being very picky about who you work with, who you want to attract as a client, what kind of projects you want to be involved with, who you're going to associate yourself with. And then at some point it's, freedom of purpose. And I'm happy to say that you guys would be interested, because that's where I'm living now. And I just shared a couple of weeks ago, actually on Facebook, I had shared, I'm going to start sharing a little bit more about faith, about flow, and about finances, because those three things are things that are, I feel very, very, deep, related, deep in my heart towards, not just from reading about it, but by living them, experiential kind of knowledge. And you're right. You don't hear much about it. You only hear about the actual technique and tactic, but at some point the tactic can only take you so long,
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
I'm curious too, you were working 8 or 9 years without children, 80, 90 hours around that time frame you were saying, and then you had kids.
But and before we were working like that too, but we were just working for someone else. So why not for myself,
Right.
at the beginning.
So you have children. I'm curious, how did you particularly, your life shift? How did you then make that transition of growing this business and having kids? I know you just don't have one, you have a few, right?
Actually, I only have one.
Oh, you do have one. I don't know why I thought you had a few.
But I have a
all your students are your children.
She's 10, and now I have a 4-legged one that's been with us for 2 years, and that's like
that's true. But how did you make that transition? Because that is not a cruise control role as a mother. That's just not how it goes.
No, and that's why I know that we were talking about this with Andresa on our initial phone call at once. We were talking about how do you find balance and so on and so forth, and that balance is a tricky thing, because I really think that you really have to think about it in terms of seasons. What season am I in? And if I am in the season of I don't have family and I have pretty much all the energy and effort to devote to this one thing that I really 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 want, then the meeting with whoever, wasting time at a bar or going out, or that immediately like falls off the priority list, because you're focused on that one thing, and you don't have the commitment and responsibility of a family. But once the family came for us, it was we were in a fortunate situation to have help, to have somebody help me in the beginning, because I wanted to be there for Sophia for the first year. But after about 6 to 7 months, and I don't want this to come across like I'm about mother, I'm like, oh my God, I am so ready to have my brain be stimulated again and be back in the office. And so at that point, I started looking for an au pair service, where we could bring somebody from Germany, because Jack really was, and I am with him. It was really important for him to have Sophia basically know German, and she was going to learn Spanish, because with being with me, as the mother, spending quite a bit of more time with her, she was going to learn it anyway. So we hired an au pair from Germany, and she came and helped out a lot. And then what happens is that you shift from, I think that was the second big shift of letting go of control, where you're not going for perfection anymore. You're going for progress. And really my 80% is really, or somebody's 80% is really more than enough, more than enough if they have the right intention and the right attitude. And this person, with time will be trained and will be aligned with our vision and mission, such that they're going to be making decisions as if it was me. And so at that point, that was the second, I think, milestone, was having Sophia. The first one was like, okay, we can't do this on our own. The next one is like, okay, now I have a child. I need to be letting much more of control, of the day to day, and really focusing on what truly is essential. Yes. So I know that you guys were asking me about, what are some of your top books? I mean, Essentialism. This is a book I would highly recommend to everyone. This book gets to the core of like, okay, what is truly essential and what is not in your life, and it goes from activities to people to ways of being to habits, that don't serve you. I mean, this is really essential, and you start examining your life. And so Sophia gave me the gift of self-reflection and examination, because now she needed my time and attention as well.
I remember when Lorenzo, he's 3 now, but when I was pregnant and my mom came to visit a couple of weeks prior of me delivering him, and she opened up all the drawers, and it was very, very, everything was organized, clean, by size, by color. There was, I swear, like if people gave me clothes, I'll say, no, I need to wash with this special detergent because that's how it is, isn't it? So let's do it. And I need to iron every single piece.
Hey,
every single one.
Don't say that word. That word is forbidden in my house. The word ironing,
right?
Ironing, iron, it needs to go to the cleaners.
Exactly. So my mom was like, Andressa, do you understand that this is not going to be functional for you? I was like, no. This is how I am planning on doing. Right. Yeah. And of course, it hit me on the freaking face because I wanted to go back to work. Right. So what is essential? Essential is that clothing being clean.
Yeah.
Out of the dryer, we folded and good to go.
Yeah.
And that's about it. So that's not a priority to me anymore at all. The perfectionist, when you are in an interview and say, what's your one of your characteristics, say you don't think it's excellent. Oh, I'm a perfectionist. You know what? Drop that. It's not serving you any way, shape, or form. In real estate, being perfectionist, maybe you can use that on like running the numbers so you can get to the sense, but other than that, it's just a waste of time and energy. And I totally get it. Like no iron at all.
Well, we all have those areas, right? So Andressa, I definitely didn't have that one where I'm ironing clothes and folding them perfectly. You should see my kids' drawers. I don't even know where his shorts are. I was like getting shorts this morning. I don't even know where they are. So I don't have that issue, but I have other issues, right? Not issues, but I have other things that are my folded clothes in the drawer, right? It's other things for me that I need to, you and I have talked about this, getting help for the kids or or, people taking on some things that I'm doing in the business. So we all have those things. So to Michelle's point and her great teaching point there is that, what in your life right now, the ladies listening to this, what in your life right now could you let go of that's not serving you any longer so that you can maybe, because if you have like 10 hours in the day to give to something, kids, family, work, and then you bring something else on, something has to go. I'm sure, I don't know. I have to read the Essentialism book. So that's on my top list now, but right. I mean, that's the whole idea, right? You only have so much time. So what are those best use of your time?
Yeah. And you can even start, we actually even go through this same exercise with our mastermind members now, because we do this quarterly, not just for your personal life, but for your business, a stop doing list. What are things that, like you said, you need to let go?
I love that.
You need to stop doing because it's like pruning a tree, so that it can really bloom and blossom and so on. But in order for it to, really blossom, you really need to, cut it back or focus your resources on one thing, So essentialism would be one. Another one along the same lines is the pumpkin plan, where you're giving your focus to that one big pumpkin that you're looking to grow in business. But for purposes of just very more tactical, for everyone listening, just a simple stop doing list of things that you need to stop doing because they're not essential.
I love that. I did not have, I have a mini list though, but I don't have that one.
You're stop
Yes.
You have list of to-dos versus list. Yeah,
exactly. But I like that list.
And then if you can start outsourcing even from, what is left on yours as much as possible to the point where really you're working only on activities that are in your genius, that you have a superior skill at and you love, that's the goal. And that's how you find the time. You make the time basically for other priorities in your life.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I have probably like 10, 15 more questions on Andressa. We got to unfortunately have Michelle back on. And I'm telling you, because I know you do teaching and you have some phenomenal courses, which I want you to talk a little bit about in a moment. But if you're not teaching on these topics, you need to be, because, I think you have so much to share and you have such a great way of explning it. And it's a message that
my days of being a crazy lady with structure and a control freak, they do pay off. Now I'm like, okay, I need just this minimal structure, and then within this minimal structure, we're just gonna let things flow. But you're right. They're definitely valuable. They're because sometimes in terms of execution and implementation of things, you do need to think about it in a more linear way, and they do help.
That's awesome. So Michelle, if for the ladies listening, they want to learn more about you, all the great things you're up to and all the courses you have and just the way you're serving people in a lot of different ways, where can they find more out about you?
Yeah, they can connect with me personally at michellebosch.com. If you are interested in hearing about our land courses, you could go to our Facebook group. It's open. It's an open, Facebook group. You'll still, need to be accepted into the group, but there's no charge. You can just come in. It's an amazing community of about 2,000 real estate investors, everyone helping each other be successful in land. And it's called Forever Cash, the Forever Cash My Open Path group. And our courses can be found, if you want to check them out, at www.landprofitgenerator.com. That's landprofitgenerator.com. And I would love to, whoever's listening to this, if being a contrarian, and going after houses, or going after land versus houses and having no competition, speaks to you, then please, by all means, that's really the easy button. You want to press the easy button?
Michelle, before I ask you the fabulous 3 questions, talk to me about the Forever Cash book as well.
Okay. So Forever Cash is basically our story and our philosophy of the one-time, temporary versus forever cash. And basically, we talk about there also about the 3 plans, the security, comfort, and luxury plan, and how to go about that. And we describe a little bit, the wealth wheel, and how in our mind, once a dollar goes and becomes an investing dollar, it never leaves that investing wheel. It always goes towards investing some more. You don't go and invest in a home that is giving you, cash flow every month. And then at some point, because you want to buy a new car, you never sell, or kill the golden, the goose to go buy yourself, an asset that will depreciate in value. So, it's kind of those stories, and the book is called Forever Cash, and that's actually forevercashbook.net. You can just order a free book, and it's just shipping that is going to be charged.
Awesome. Yeah. Great. So let's go to the fabulous 3 questions. I think we talked about books, but if you have any other one that you want to jump in. So right now what's the most transformational book you have ever read?
Oh my God, ever read? I would have many, but lately I have read one from Brené Brown that is called Braving the Wilderness. And Braving the Wilderness is all about freedom to be yourself. It's about, at some point, you are going to be out there and you are not going to be pleasing everyone, and that's okay. And it's okay for people not to agree with you, and it's okay for people to criticize or whatever. You must be doing something right if there's people giving you any negative energy coming your way. But in essence, is basically it's kind of like a book that is about your coming out declaration of, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, and it's not a take it or leave it, because you're working with people, and I'm all about unity and community, but it's really about really enjoying who you are, and if you're wired to be very linear, own that, take that on and make the best with it, or if you're a very creative type of person, and then own that and go do that, and a lot more of it, and so wow. It was a great book. I highly recommend it. Braving the Wilderness by Brené Brown, which is a lady that I think also wrote something Brave. I want to say Brave, or
yeah, she has been on a Super Soul Sunday several times.
TED Talk too. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, she's incredible about vulnerability, and how that vulnerability really you shouldn't think of that as a weakness, but really as a sense of strength and power, something that you can really rest on.
Wow, beautiful.
Yeah.
The second question is, what's the most powerful routine you do to create a financially free and balanced life?
I love that question. And the reason why is, like I said, I just started, this new project, which is talking to people about faith and flow. And that question really goes to the core of it, because, you can do things and schedule things quarterly, but really we all live in the day. And so what can you do on a daily basis that will give you power? Do you want to walk out the door, feeling powerful, or feeling completely assaulted and victimized by all the demands of, the day and that people have on you? And so for me, it's breath work and it's meditation. So just, nice breath work. I have been practicing yoga for the last 7 to 8 years. So in yoga, we call it pranayama, but it's really just, deep breathing, and meditation has been definitely one of those tools where you're like, okay, I don't have time to sit down to meditate, 10 to 15 minutes. And because you don't have time, you definitely need it. And another objection that I really hear is, well, isn't that involving like thinking about nothing? My mind is always going. That's the whole point. It's about you sitting for 10 to 15 minutes and consciously watching how your mind is going. and at some point, you do this, for a few weeks, and you start detaching from that crazy itty shitty bitty committee that is running the show in your head.
Totally.
And you start making some distance, and you're like, oh, okay, those are crazy programs or crazy patterns that I'm on, but if you don't even notice them to begin with, so it's a great tool to start noticing those things. And what you will find is that those things will slowly fall off, and you will be able to find moments, little tiny gaps of being just you yourself, and that those tiny gaps will permeate throughout the day, and your intellect will be like sharp, right on. You will have much more clarity. You will things that would probably take you, I don't know, an hour or however long to decide, maybe you can come to a decision right away. And that's because you've had some time to honor and anchor yourself or ground yourself in something, and in the beginning, it starts with grounding in yourself so that you can find faith in yourself. But then that faith starts extending to faith in the goodness of others and faith in the unknown or God, and so, yeah, that breath work and meditation, if you can't go straight to God, start with having faith in yourself, by some kind of a practice of some sort, like meditation, and then start moving outward from there.
Beautiful. The last question is, which woman, famous or not, has inspired you the most?
Which woman? So there's a lot, but one that I really, really, really love and resonate when her book came out a while back is Sheryl Sandberg, the CEO of Facebook. And the two things that really resonated with me there were, women. And if you made the decision to get off the gas and be at home, that's totally fine. But if that is not the decision, that you're making actively, her advice of keeping your foot on the gas and keeping relevant and staying on top and current, basically, in your skill set, in knowledge and things that expand both your mind and your heart, definitely spoke to me. Another thing that she said about there is, for us ladies, I think it's incredibly valuable. And I don't want this to be taken as like calculating, but it's like about being very careful in the partner that you choose, to marry and to start a family, someone that, she says there, choose someone that sees you as a truly equal partner, and that is so important. I think, because otherwise you're stuck with the responsibilities at home and at work, and it should be an equal responsibility. So those two things I really love about her message there. And another lady that I really admire is Oprah. And why I love Oprah, it's not just because she's vulnerable and she's an amazing communicator, but I love how she has used her platform and her incredible influence to talk about, without the public even knowing, about consciousness work, about self-awareness, about faith in yourself, in the goodness of others, in the unknown, and so on and so forth. in a very secular way. I love how she's basically used her platform and her experience to talk about that. So those, I think, would be the two ladies for sure.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle. Can't thank you enough for being on the show, sharing all of your wisdom with us and the ladies listening and the community. So we really are sincerely appreciative of your time.
Absolutely. We have like 2 or 3 more like themes for next episodes that we can dissect and go deeper. I can't wait for it.
It will be my pleasure, because I feel like, okay, you guys wanted to interview me about real estate and it kind of went the other way, but I love this because this is what I'm passionate about. So this
Awesome.
is perfect.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to receive updates on our next interviews, go to our website, therealestateinvestor.com. There, you can subscribe to our show, become part of our investor community, and get updates on upcoming episodes.
If you like our show, please share it with other women who would benefit. And don't forget to leave us a rating on iTunes. We'd really appreciate it. And as always, we encourage you to take one action as a result of today's show and put it into motion so you can live both a financially free and balanced life. Thanks for spending time with us.
Ciao.